We're in Florence now, and we're in a square called Santa Annunziata. It takes its name from this church that's behind me now, which means the Most Holy Annunciation. And I wanted to point out this building that's behind me because it's one that is really, really important in the history of architecture, and it's kind of overlooked many times by people coming to Florence. And it is what's called the Hospital of the Innocents, the Ospedale degli Innocenti. It is a very early example of like perfect Renaissance architecture, and it was designed by Filippo Brunelleschi. Brunelleschi was the designer, the architect of the dome of the Duomo, which is just south of here. You can see it behind me in the background there. There's the dome of Brunelleschi. But before he built that dome, he actually designed this structure that's behind me. And most art history books consider it to be one of the top sort of first classic Renaissance buildings. And what it served a function, which was to take care of abandoned babies. So that's why it's called the Hospital of the Innocents. So what they did was, it was run by the Silk Guild of Florence. It was one of the richest guilds, and they also took on this sort of philanthropic this charity, which was to support this hospital. So people could bring their babies that they didn't want and abandon them here. In the central doors there that are right behind me, there was something like a wheel that you could place a baby in and then twist it, and it would go inside and nobody would see who was dropping off the baby. And then these babies were cared for by wet nurses in there, and then they were educated, the boys in different sort of skills, and then the girls in others. The girls then had a choice either to be married or to become nuns, and they were provided with a dowry and so on. So it was a way to integrate these abandoned babies back into society. And we're talking about the building itself was from the early 1400s, so 1419 was when Brunelleschi designed it, and it served this function for several hundred years until it was finally closed down in the 1800s. Today it's part of UNICEF is actually run out of there, the Children's Foundation of UNICEF. And so it's the important thing though about it is the actual architecture of it, because it's a very early example of this perfect harmony of Renaissance architecture. So what you can see are some, I'm going to get closer, but you can see the columns there. They're a composite order, which means sort of a mixture of the classical orders that are topped with arches. The distance between the columns is the same measurements as the column height. And then also, if you were to draw a line from the columns back to the wall, it's the same distance as well. So it kind of creates a cube. Each of these 9 arches are like a cube. And they, above them, you can see those blue rondelles are ceramic. They were added later. Brunelleschi didn't originally intend for them to be there. They were added at the end of the 1400s by a very, very famous ceramic artist named Andrea della Robbia. Some of them are original, some of them are copies. Now the originals are in a museum. But it's considered to be really a perfect example of early Renaissance architecture, incorporating certain elements that later on, you know, were used in other buildings, in other Renaissance buildings. And the juxtaposition of that stone and the white facade that came to be known as Pietra Serena, and that was something very typical in Renaissance architecture as well. So really a groundbreaking building that people don't, you know, really come to see in Florence. Not very far from the center where the Duomo is, but it certainly has a lot of importance in Renaissance architecture. So the Ospedale degli Innocenti here in the Piazza Santa Annunziata, and then there's an equestrian statue here by famous bronze sculptor called Gian Bologna from the 1600s. So lots and lots of history right in this little square that's unknown to a lot of people, but it's very, very much worth visiting. So here we're getting closer to the facade of this really magnificent Renaissance structure. And you can see more clearly the columns, this pietra serena, the stone, and those ceramic rondelles up there, which represent the function of the building. They're babies in swaddling clothes. That wheel where you could drop off, you know, babies, if the abandoned babies, was here in the central, where the central doors are nowadays. As I said, that wheel doesn't exist anymore. But this was what the function of the building was. It was to take care of abandoned children. So designed by Brunelleschi. It was before he built the dome, right before he built the dome actually. He began the dome just a year later. So 1419, this building has been it served the same function for a good 400 years. And then even today, as I said, UNICEF, you can see the logo of UNICEF right there at the front door, has offices here, and they still carry out functions related to children around the world in over 190 countries, so from right here.